while she's taking this moment, I hear all of y'all saying, that's all of us. It's this whole room, right? We like, we can hold you down, Queen.
Her face says it all. Queen Latifah is going through it, and this moment barely scratches the surface. Most people know her as the unstoppable Queen Latifah, a hip-hop pioneer, award-winning actress, and Hollywood icon. But beneath the crown, Latifah is facing struggles that few can imagine. How did her life go from heroic success to heartbreaking tragedy? Stick around because there's a lot you don't know about the woman behind the name. The origins. Newark in the 1970s was a city still smoldering from the fires of the 1967 riots. It was a place where hope often seemed like a luxury few could afford. For Rita and Lancelot Owens, however, hope came in the form of their daughter, Dana. Born on March 18, 1970, she entered the world as society itself was transforming. Civil rights movements were reshaping America, women were demanding equality, and music was becoming a powerful tool for social change. Rita, a high school teacher, instilled in Dana a love for education and the arts. Lancelot, a police officer, taught her about discipline and the harsh realities of life on the streets he patrolled. Together, they created a home filled with love, music, and high expectations. In interviews, Queen Latifah has often spoken warmly about the influence of her parents. She has credited her mother with teaching her about strength and independence, and her father with showing her how to maintain compassion even in difficult circumstances.
There's no way that I could have had the parents that I was born to, my father, my mother, who instilled so much in me.
They were her first examples of dignity and integrity, but the harmony in the Owens household wouldn't last. When Dana was only 8 years old, her parents separated. The divorce was a seismic shift in her young life, a first lesson in loss and adaptation. Rita moved Dana and her older brother, Lancelot Jr., to East Orange, New Jersey, a slight geographical shift that represented a massive emotional upheaval. Queen Latifah has spoken in interviews about how disorienting this time was, how it fundamentally altered her sense of security and stability. She found herself navigating a new reality, new neighborhood, new school, new family dynamic. In East Orange, Dana found herself in a new neighborhood, a new school, and a new reality. It was here, amid the destabilizing changes of her childhood, that she began to develop the resilience that would later become her hallmark. She threw herself into activity, basketball because of her height, and music because of her soul. The streets of East Orange weren't always kind. The 1980s brought the crack epidemic, gang violence, and diminishing opportunities for many of its residents. Young Dana witnessed firsthand the impact of systemic inequality, of dreams deferred, of potential squandered. But in her home, a different narrative was being written. In interviews, Queen Latifah has spoken about how her mother created an environment where possibilities seemed limitless, where gender and race weren't seen as barriers to achievement.
The person who has held me to that standard is my mother. For my entire life, the person who showed me what being a woman is all about. Who lifted me up, who encouraged me, and who believed in me.
This foundation would prove crucial to her later success. Music became her refuge, a place where the chaos of her changing world could be transformed into something beautiful and orderly. She listened to the jazz records her grandfather had collected, soaking in the improvisation and emotional depth of artists like Sarah Vaughan and Bessie Smith. She absorbed the revolutionary messages of the emerging hip-hop scene, and in her mother's steadfast presence, she witnessed daily what it meant to be a strong, independent black woman navigating a world not designed for her success. Queen Latifah has often acknowledged her mother's influence, describing her as someone who balanced work, education, and family with remarkable grace. Rita worked full-time, earned her master's degree, and remained fully present in her children's lives, modeling the kind of balanced achievement her daughter would later emulate. It was Rita who would first plant the seed of Dana's regal future. Looking at her daughter's growing confidence and natural leadership, she told her, "You know, Dana, you're kind of like a queen."
How did you get your name Queen?
Well, my mother raised me to believe that all women are queens and should be treated as such.
A queen in East Orange, New Jersey. The idea would take root and grow into something neither mother nor daughter could have imagined. Dana and her brother Lance Jr. were inseparable growing up. 2 years her senior, Lance was her protector, her confidant, her first audience. When she wrote her earliest rhymes, it was Lance who listened, who encouraged, who pushed her to be better. He was the one who would drive her to her first performances, who stood at the back of small clubs, arms crossed, making sure his little sister was respected in spaces not always welcoming to young women. In interviews, Queen Latifah has often spoken of her brother's unwavering belief in her talent and potential. Before she achieved fame, when she was still developing her voice and style, Lance was already her biggest advocate, telling anyone who would listen that his sister was destined for greatness. Their bond wasn't just familial, it was foundational. In the absence of their father's daily presence after the divorce, Lance stepped into a role beyond that of a typical older brother. He became a constant, a reference point, a source of strength and stability during turbulent times. The siblings navigated the complexities of adolescence together, weathering the challenges of their changing family dynamic, the temptations and dangers of their environment, and the everyday trials of growing up Black in America. Lance was there when Dana was briefly benched from the basketball team despite being one of the best players, supporting her until she was reinstated. He was there when she experienced her first heartbreak. He was there when she decided to take her music seriously, transforming from a hobby into a potential career path, and become somebody she did. By her late teens, Dana had transformed into Queen Latifah, a name she chose from an Arabic book of names. Latifah meant delicate and sensitive, while Queen acknowledged her inherent power and dignity. It was a name that contained multitudes, much like the woman herself. Her first single, Wrath of My Madness, was released in 1988 when she was just 18 years old, and it announced the arrival of a new kind of female MC. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Queen Latifah didn't rely on sexuality or conformity to male expectations. Instead, she commanded respect through the sheer force of her talent and message. The late 1980s were a transformative time for hip-hop. The genre was expanding beyond its New York roots, developing diverse regional sounds and perspectives. It was gaining commercial power, but also facing increasing scrutiny and criticism for its content and cultural impact. Female voices were still largely marginalized, often limited to roles as backup singers or visual accessories in music videos. Queen Latifah entered this landscape with a clear vision and a distinctive voice. Her style was assertive but not aggressive, confident but not arrogant, feminist but not exclusionary. She rapped about unity, about respect, about community upliftment, themes that resonated deeply but were often overshadowed in mainstream hip-hop narratives. Her debut album, All Hail the Queen, released in 1989, solidified her as a powerful new voice in hip-hop. With songs like Ladies First, featuring British rapper Moni Love, she became an ambassador for women's empowerment in a genre often criticized for its misogyny. In interviews about her early career, Queen Latifah has emphasized that her approach wasn't calculated to be revolutionary. It was simply authentic to who she was and what she believed. She couldn't pretend to be something she wasn't or rap about experiences that weren't her own. Her perspective naturally centered the power and dignity of women because that was her lived reality. The album was both a critical and commercial success, establishing Queen Latifah as more than just a female rapper. She was a force to be reckoned with, an artist whose talent transcended gender categorizations. Her music celebrated Blackness, womanhood, and self-determination in ways that challenged prevailing narratives without alienating audiences. During this period of professional ascension, Lance remained her anchor to reality, the person who knew Dana beneath the emerging persona of Queen Latifah. He attended her shows, traveled with her when possible, and provided honest feedback on her work. Their relationship evolved as her fame grew, but the fundamental dynamics of trust, protection, and mutual admiration remained constant. Queen Latifah's second album, Nature of a Sister, was released in 1991, further developing her unique voice and perspective in hip-hop. The album showcased her versatility as an artist, incorporating elements of jazz, R&B, and house music alongside traditional hip-hop beats and rhymes. But as her star rose, as her voice reached more ears and her face appeared on more screens, Queen Latifah's personal life was about to be shattered by a tragedy so profound it would forever alter the course of her life: the devastating loss. It was 1992. Queen Latifah was 22 years old, riding high on her success following the release of her second album. Lance, then 24, had recently purchased a motorcycle, a Honda CBR 600, a symbol of his own growing independence. On April 26, 1992, Lance Owens took his Honda motorcycle out for a ride. It was a routine Sunday, a quick ride, a familiar road, East Orange, the place they'd both grown up. He never came home. In interviews over the years, Queen Latifah has described the devastating moment she learned of her brother's accident. The world seemed to stop.
We both rode motorcycles. I was supposed to be with him that day on a motorcycle, but one of our friends had to move, so we were moving all day.
Lance Owens died in a motorcycle accident on the streets of their hometown. The police would later determine that the accident occurred when a car failed to yield at an intersection, a split-second decision that resulted in an incalculable loss. The death of her brother didn't just break Queen Latifah's heart, it nearly broke her spirit. Lance had been more than a brother. He had been her touchstone, her connection to Dana Owens in a world that increasingly knew only Queen Latifah. In the years since his death, Queen Latifah has spoken openly about the profound impact impact of losing her brother. She has described it as a fundamental shift in her reality, creating a clear demarcation between life before April 26, 1992, and life after. The two existences feel irreconcilably different.
When that happens to you and you can't even make a fist because you've lost the strength in your hands, I have faith, but I questioned a whole lot of things. I questioned so many things. I questioned God. I needed to understand why this happened. Why would this happen?
The timing of Lance's death added another layer of cruelty to an already devastating situation. Queen Latifah was at a pivotal point in her career, transitioning from a promising newcomer to an established artist with staying power. She had television and film opportunities on the horizon. The world was watching to see what she would do next. And suddenly, the professional milestones that had seemed so important just days before felt hollow in the face of such profound personal loss. The grief was all-consuming, a tidal wave that threatened to sweep away everything in its path. There were days when getting out of bed seemed impossible, when the weight of loss made even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming. There were nights spent questioning the unfairness of it all, struggling to make sense of a world that could take someone so young, so full of promise, so essential to her existence. In the aftermath of Lance's death, Queen Latifah has spoken about keeping mementos that remind her of her brother. The motorcycle key has been mentioned as a symbolic connection to him and a reminder of life's fragility and preciousness. Queen Latifah channeled her grief into her music. Her 1993 album, Black Rain, was dedicated to Lance and featured the Grammy-winning hit Unity, a powerful anthem against the disrespect of women. The album marked a new maturity in her work, a depth born of profound loss. Unity, in particular, resonated with audiences, addressing street harassment, domestic violence, and the derogatory language often used to describe women. The song's message was clear. Respect was non-negotiable, and women deserved to be treated with dignity, regardless of circumstances. It earned Queen Latifah her first Grammy Award and cemented her status as not just an entertainer but a voice for social change. But privately, Queen Latifah was struggling with the reality of her loss. Finding healthy ways to process grief while maintaining a public persona and advancing a demanding career proved challenging. The journey through grief is rarely linear, and Queen Latifah's path was no exception.
After my brother passed away, it was so bittersweet. It seemed like everything became successful. Living Single became the #1 show among Black and Latino households.
Living Single, which premiered in 1993, cast Queen Latifah as Khadijah James, the ambitious editor and publisher of a fictional urban magazine called Flavor. The sitcom was groundbreaking in its portrayal of young, successful Black women living and working in Brooklyn, and it became one of the most popular Black sitcoms of the era. Friends, which premiered a year later with a somewhat similar premise but featuring a predominantly white cast, would also achieve massive success, though any direct influence between the shows remains a subject of discussion rather than confirmed fact. For Queen Latifah, Living Single represented more than just a career pivot. It was an opportunity to explore new creative territory during a difficult personal time. The show's demanding schedule, the camaraderie of the cast, the challenge of mastering a new medium, all of it provided structure and purpose during a period of emotional turbulence. In interviews, Queen Latifah has spoken about how important the show was during this phase of her life. It required her to show up consistently, to be present and engaged, to inhabit a character who embodied many of the qualities she was struggling to maintain in her personal life: strength, confidence, determination. The character of Khadijah James shared many qualities with Queen Latifah herself. She was ambitious, loyal, creative, and determined. Playing the role allowed Queen Latifah to temporarily step outside her grief, to focus on something constructive and positive. The set of Living Single became a supportive environment, a place where Queen Latifah could focus on something besides her pain. The cast, including Kim Coles, Erica Alexander, Kim Fields, John Henton, and T.C. Carson, became a surrogate family, providing community and connection at a time when she desperately needed both. Living Single ran for 5 successful seasons, cementing Queen Latifah's status as not just a hip-hop artist, but a versatile entertainer with genuine crossover appeal. But even as her professional life flourished, her personal life continued to be marked by challenges that tested her resilience. In 1995, while driving her BMW in Harlem, Queen Latifah was the victim of a carjacking. The assailant shot her friend and bodyguard Sean Moon, who survived the attack. Though physically unharmed, Queen Latifah was deeply shaken by the incident, which reminded her of the violence that had taken her brother's life and the precariousness of existence. Queen Latifah has spoken about how it forced her to reevaluate many aspects of her life: her relationship with fame, her connection to her hometown, her understanding of security and vulnerability. The carjacking added another layer of trauma to what was already a challenging period. The incident also brought back the raw grief of losing Lance, reopening wounds that had barely begun to heal. The sudden violence, the life-threatening danger, the helplessness in the face of someone else's destructive choices, all of it echoed the circumstances of her brother's death. And once again, she found herself grappling with questions of mortality and meaning. In interviews over the years, Queen Latifah has spoken candidly about how experiences with death and violence have shaped her outlook on life. They've instilled an awareness of life's fragility and a commitment to making meaningful use of the time she's been given. Yet through it all, through the grief and the fear and the questioning, Queen Latifah kept moving forward, because that's what queens do. They reign even when the crown feels too heavy to bear. Latifah's Hollywood reign. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw Queen Latifah expand her reign into Hollywood in a significant way. After smaller roles in films like Jungle Fever and House Party 2, she delivered a breakthrough performance in F. Gary Gray's 1996 heist drama, Set It Off. Playing Cleo, a lesbian bank robber, Queen Latifah showed a depth and fearlessness that surprised critics and audiences alike. In interviews about the role, Queen Latifah has acknowledged that playing Cleo pushed her outside her comfort zone. The character was quite different from her public persona, but she connected with Cleo's emotional core, her loyalty, her pain, her fierce protectiveness of those she loved. Her portrayal earned widespread praise and proved that Queen Latifah was a formidable dramatic actress. The film marked one of the important milestones in LGBTQ plus representation in mainstream cinema during this period by featuring a complex, sympathetic black lesbian character. For Queen Latifah, who has generally maintained privacy regarding her personal life, the role demonstrated her commitment to authentic storytelling regardless of potential public speculation. Set It Off was a commercial success as well, grossing over $41 million on a budget of just $9 million. It demonstrated that films centered on the experiences of black women could be commercially viable, challenging Hollywood's narrow perceptions of what audiences wanted to see. For Queen Latifah, it was validation of something she had always known, but that the industry was slow to recognize. Diverse stories matter, and representation is not just a moral imperative, but a business opportunity. Following the success of Set It Off, Queen Latifah appeared in a string of films that showcased different facets of her talent. She demonstrated her comedic timing in Bringing Down the House with Steve Martin and continued to build a diverse portfolio that defied easy categorization. But it was her role in Chicago that would elevate her to a new echelon of industry respect. As matron Mama Morton, the warden of the women's block in the Cook County Jail, Queen Latifah delivered a performance that was both commanding and nuanced. Her rendition of When You're Good to Mama showcased her formidable vocal talents and charismatic screen presence, earning her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, making her the first female hip-hop artist to receive an Oscar nomination. The nomination represented a significant milestone not just for Queen Latifah personally, but for hip-hop culture more broadly. It was recognition from the Hollywood establishment that hip-hop artists could successfully transition into other creative domains while maintaining their authenticity and artistic integrity. During this period of professional growth, Queen Latifah was also dealing with her mother Rita's health challenges. Rita Owens was diagnosed with heart failure in the mid-2000s.
My mom actually was diagnosed with heart failure years ago. She was teaching in class in Irvington High School, New Jersey. She's a high school teacher, and she passed out in class.
Oh my goodness.
And we got some testing, and the doctor said you have heart failure.
Despite these personal challenges, Queen Latifah continued to expand her professional horizons. Her versatility became her calling card. She could seamlessly transition from comedy to drama, from music to acting, from television to film. She defied categorization, refused to be limited by industry expectations, and continually surprised audiences with her range and depth. In interviews, Queen Latifah has expressed her determination to avoid being pigeonholed, particularly as a black woman in an industry that often tries to confine talent to narrow lanes. She saw how easily artists could be limited to a single type of role or expression, and was committed to charting a more diverse creative path. This determination to chart her own course extended beyond her creative choices to her business decisions as well. Flavor Unit existed since the late 1980s and evolved into a production company in the early 1990s, co-led by Queen Latifah and her longtime manager, Shaquem Compare. The company gave her greater control over her projects and allowed her to create opportunities for other artists, particularly women and people of color. In 2006, she became the first female hip-hop artist to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The ceremony represented a full-circle moment, an acknowledgement of her journey from the streets of East Orange to the pinnacle of entertainment industry recognition. Behind the scenes, however, Queen Latifah was navigating the challenges of her mother's declining health. Rita Owens had become her daughter's business partner, traveling with her when possible, offering guidance on major decisions, and providing the unconditional unconditional love that had been the bedrock of Queen Latifah's success. As Rita's condition worsened, Queen Latifah took on the role of caregiver, adapting her schedule to ensure her mother received the best possible care. It was a reversal of the dynamic that had defined their relationship for decades. Now it was the daughter supporting the mother, the child becoming the parent. In interviews, Queen Latifah has spoken about her commitment to her mother's care, about rearranging professional obligations to be with her, about learning to become an advocate within the healthcare system. She has described it not as a burden, but as a natural extension of the love and support her mother had always given her.
And of course, as caregivers, we had to figure it out. It really was important for us to kind of just let her know we're there for her, and we had her back, and we would help her with whatever she needed. And it kind of changed the dynamic for she and I. If anything, we grew much, much closer.
This period of Queen Latifah's life, balancing caregiving responsibilities with an increasingly demanding career, rarely made headlines, but it shaped her in profound ways, deepening her compassion, strengthening her resolve, and reinforcing her understanding of what truly matters. In March 2018, Rita Owens passed away after a long battle with heart failure. The woman who had been Queen Latifah's North Star, her manager, her biggest champion, and her model for how to move through the world with grace and dignity, was gone. It is with a heavy heart that I share the news my mother, Rita Owens, passed away today, Queen Latifah said in a statement at the time. Anyone that has ever met her knows what a bright light she was on this earth. She was gentle but strong, sweet but sassy, worldly but pragmatic, a woman of great faith and certainly the love of my life. The loss of her mother came at a time when Queen Latifah was continuing to evolve as an artist and as a woman. She had successfully transitioned from rapper to actress to producer to talk show host. She had amassed a fortune through savvy business decisions and groundbreaking endorsement deals, including becoming a CoverGirl spokesperson, a role that challenged conventional beauty standards and opened doors for women who looked like her. But all of these professional successes paled in comparison to the magnitude of her personal loss. Rita had been more than a mother. She had been Queen Latifah's business partner, her moral compass, her first and most important teacher. In the aftermath of Rita's passing, Queen Latifah once again found herself navigating grief in the public eye. This resilience in the face of repeated tragedy is perhaps Queen Latifah's most defining characteristic. It's a quality that has enabled her not just to survive her losses, but to continue growing, evolving, and creating in their wake. In recent years, Queen Latifah has continued to break new ground. In 2021, she took on the lead role in CBS's reboot of The Equalizer, becoming one of the first Black women in recent history to lead a network drama. As Robin McCall, a former CIA operative who uses her skills to help those with nowhere else to turn, Queen Latifah embodies the strength, complexity, and moral clarity that have defined her own life. In interviews about the role, Queen Latifah has expressed enthusiasm for playing a character who fights for justice on her own terms, who doesn't wait for permission or validation to do what's right. The themes of the show, standing up for the vulnerable, challenging corrupt systems, finding unconventional paths to justice, align with values she's expressed throughout her career. The Equalizer represents another milestone in Queen Latifah's boundary-breaking career. The original series, which aired from 1985 to 1989, starred Edward Woodward as Robert McCall. The film adaptations featured Denzel Washington in the title role. By stepping into this traditionally male character, Queen Latifah has once again challenged industry conventions and expanded the possibilities for women, particularly women of color, in Hollywood. The success of the series, which has consistently ranked among CBS's top-rated dramas, has affirmed that audiences are ready for the kinds of stories Queen Latifah wants to tell and the perspectives she brings to them. It has also provided her with a platform to address issues close to her heart, from racial injustice to economic inequality to the challenges facing single parents. But beyond its social significance, The Equalizer has allowed Queen Latifah to showcase her range as an actress. The role demands both emotional depth and physical prowess, requiring her to be vulnerable in one scene and formidable in the next. It's a complexity that reflects her own multifaceted identity, both Dana and the Queen, both soft and strong, both wounded and resilient. The success of The Equalizer has affirmed what Queen Latifah's fans have known for decades. She is a singular talent whose appeal transcends genres, generations, and demographics. At 52, she remains as relevant and influential as she was when she first emerged on the hip-hop scene more than 3 decades ago. Throughout her career, Queen Latifah has used her platform to advocate for causes she believes in. She has been a vocal supporter of LGBTQ+ rights, and while she maintained privacy regarding her personal life for many years, she publicly acknowledged her partner during a BET Awards acceptance speech in 2021. She has spoken out against police brutality and systemic racism, drawing on her experiences as the daughter of a police officer to bring nuance to these complex conversations. She has championed body positivity and challenged narrow beauty standards, particularly in an industry known for its superficiality and exclusion. In interviews about body image and beauty standards, Queen Latifah has consistently emphasized self-acceptance and comfort in one's own skin.
Dana,
You're either gonna hate yourself or you're gonna love yourself. What are you gonna do? And I'm just literally staring in the mirror, and I said, you are going to love yourself. I'm gonna love myself.
She has rejected the pressure to conform to conventional size expectations, positioning herself instead as an advocate for authentic self-expression and representation. This authenticity, this refusal to conform to external expectations, is at the core of Queen Latifah's enduring appeal. In an industry built on illusion and artifice, she has remained stubbornly real, acknowledging her struggles, celebrating her successes, and sharing her journey with a candor that invites connection. But beyond her professional achievements, what stands out about Queen Latifah is her humanity, her willingness to be vulnerable, her commitment to authenticity, her refusal to be defined by industry, expectations, or personal tragedies. In interviews reflecting on her journey through grief, Queen Latifah has described it not as something to get over, but as something to move through and integrate into one's life. She has likened grief to a new landscape feature, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes manageable, but always present in some form. And she has emphasized the importance of learning to navigate this terrain without allowing it to define one's entire existence. This wisdom, hard-won through decades of public triumph and private pain, is perhaps Queen Latifah's most valuable legacy. More than her Grammy Awards or her Oscar nomination or her groundbreaking achievements, it is her resilience, her ability to reign even in the darkest of times, that makes her truly royal. The girl from Newark who became a queen has weathered storms that might have broken someone with less inner strength. She has buried a brother, nursed and lost a mother, survived violence, faced discrimination, and confronted the relentless scrutiny that comes with fame. Yet she has done it all with a grace and dignity that have earned her the admiration of millions. In interviews reflecting on her journey, Queen Latifah has expressed gratitude for both the successes and the struggles that have shaped her life. She has acknowledged that every experience, whether positive or painful, has contributed to who she is today, an identity that continues to evolve and grow. Today, Queen Latifah continues to build on her extraordinary legacy. She has become increasingly involved in producing, using her platform to tell stories that might otherwise go untold. Through her production company, Flavor Unit Entertainment, she has created opportunities for other artists, particularly women and people of color, to share their voices and visions. She's also become more outspoken about social justice issues, lending her voice and resources to causes that align with her values. From supporting LGBTQ+ rights to advocating for equal representation in Hollywood, Queen Latifah has used her influence to push for meaningful change. In her personal life, though she maintained privacy about certain aspects for many years, she appears to have found a measure of peace and happiness. She has spoken about the importance of self-care, of setting boundaries, of honoring her own needs amid the constant demands of her career. In interviews, Queen Latifah has emphasized the importance of balancing self-care with service to others, understanding that maintaining one's own well-being is essential to having the energy and capacity to support others. This philosophy reflects the balance she's cultivated throughout her life and career. This philosophy, this balance of strength and softness, of public service and private nurturing, is the essence of Queen Latifah's enduring appeal. She is both the queen and Dana, both the icon and the human, both the survivor and the thriver. As we reflect on the tragic fate that has befallen Queen Latifah throughout her life, the losses, the challenges, the battles both public and private, we are reminded that fate is not just what happens to us, it is also what we make of what happens to us. And Queen Latifah has made something remarkable of her fate. She has transformed pain into purpose, grief into growth, tragedy into triumph. She has used her losses to deepen her empathy, her struggles to strengthen her resolve, her visibility to amplify voices less heard than her own. In doing so, she has redefined what it means to be royal in a world that often equates royalty with privilege and distance. Queen Latifah's royalty is rooted in resilience, in authenticity, in the ability to rise again and again from the ashes of heartbreak. Her crown may be hard-won and heavy at times, but she wears it with a dignity and determination that inspire us all to face our own fates with courage and grace. In interviews, Queen Latifah has spoken about the inevitability of life's challenges and the importance of how we respond to them. She has emphasized that it's not the falling down that defines us, but the getting back up. The choices we make about how to move forward, how to grow, how to become more compassionate and wise in the face of adversity. It's a philosophy Queen Latifah has embodied throughout her life and career, and in choosing strength, wisdom, and compassion even in her darkest hours, she has given us all a template for how to reign over our own lives, how to be sovereign even in our suffering. What losses have shaped your life? What crowns have you worn even when they felt too heavy? What parts of your own story are still waiting to be transformed from tragedy to triumph? Like Queen Latifah, we all contain multitudes. We all carry memories of doors that have closed. We all wear invisible crowns that mark our journeys of survival survival and growth. If her story has moved you, if it has reminded you of your own resilience, or inspired you to face your challenges with renewed courage, please like and subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications to ensure you never miss another story of extraordinary human strength and spirit. Because in sharing these stories, in witnessing each other's paths through pain and toward purpose, we learn perhaps the most important lesson of Queen Latifah's life, that true royalty lies not in avoiding tragedy, but in how we rise above it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.